Hello everyone, hope you are doing well and welcome to what is like a West Ham fan's dummy's guide to AZ Alkmaar. If you don't know much about them, good, you're in the right place. I don't know much about them, but someone who does is sat next to me. Mystery guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Michael Statham, at AZ Mike on Twitter, and I write and do videos for Football-Oranje, which is Dutch football in English language. So if you like the Eredivisie or want to get into it, come and see us.
Now, he's also done a video with Cal from Analytics United, so I'm going to link that video at the end of this one and in the description below. So do go head over to that YouTube channel, check out that monster preview that they did ahead of the game. But let's just start with a very basic question, please. How's Alkmaar's season going?
Yeah, pretty good. I'd say that they're expected to be in like the top four of the Eredivisie. No one expects them to be the league winners either. So you've got this kind of middle ground of, well, the fans will happy to take European football, finish in the top four, get some good young players, make lots of money, and compete in Europe. But getting this far, it's amazing. But not that they're like a minnows at all in this tournament. I think that they were always one of the favourites. But in this new competition, you don't have that quite expectation yet over, well, you're in this, so you've got to go and win it. And I think for AZ, this is a really nice moment for them. Got to the final last year, on the way up to success they've had now. They're in the Champions League now, the year after. I think AZ are kind of following in that footsteps. They're really growing. For me, they're possibly the second best team in the Netherlands this season, even though they're actually fourth, which is a bit weird, and I can explain that a bit more. But they're a side that, like I said, this expectation's not quite looming over them like it does with Ajax, like it does with Feyenoord. And they've got lots of talented players, so I'm sure we'll get into in a bit.
What makes them the second best team in the country then?
So like there's Feyenoord this season who are ultra consistent. They've got players all over the pitch and they are the best team in the league. Then you've got PSV who are actually second, and they had an early exit from Europe. They've won a lot of games recently, so they've kind of powered themselves up in second. But before that, there were four teams, technically five, with Twente as well, all going in for the title in those top positions. And AZ were there; they were top of the league for a few match rounds, and people thought, could this really be them now that take over a league that's without a really, really strong Ajax? And the fact is, they've got sucked into Europe. Their squad is quite thin. They can't keep competing in all competitions to this stage without dropping points or having injuries. And actually, both things have happened. But when they are all together, I think in this moment now, we'll get to see why they are so good. I think we'll talk again about the ins and the outs of it all. But I know people look at the Eredivisie and we know it's not as strong as the Premier League. But people need to understand that it's not also like the Belgian league. It's better. And if AZ win this game, the other semi-final and the final, the Netherlands becomes the fifth best league in Europe and overtakes France in the coefficient. I don't think that's going to happen, but it shows you that they're neck and neck now with the likes of France in terms of how strong the league is. So West Ham need to take this very seriously if they're going to get through it. Because I think if West Ham use their physical aspect, their physical side, that's how they can get one over AZ.
Well, let's take a sidestep then from the club to the country. Obviously, the Conference League made its debut last season. Like you said, Feyenoord got to the final. Now we've got Alkmaar as semi-finalist. Do you expect, given that you get quite a healthy allocation as well in the Netherlands, do you expect a Dutch team to win this competition very, very soon?
I think the European competition, it's hard to expect it, isn't it? Because if you said, would they get to a semi-final, final, I'd say the answer is yeah. Over the next 5 to 10 years, I would expect to see more Dutch sides making it to semi-finals and finals of this competition. But how often that happens, it depends on the luck of a draw and what have you. However, we've seen AZ beat Lazio home and away on the way to get to this point. At that point, I think it makes people sit up and take notice that this side can compete with this sort of tier of European teams that can beat them. With regards to the league itself, yeah, it's getting stronger, and I think we'll see them more teams doing well in the Europa League and the Conference League because of what we've been talking about. This league is getting stronger, and there's loads of young players that can impress in it.
Yeah, and like back to Alkmaar then, you've already explained that this season's sort of above expectation for them domestically. and in European football. But what can you tell us about how they play? You've made a few hints there along the way, but in terms of like their formation and the style they play, what can you tell us about that?
4-3-3, Dutch. You can get pass in, that kind of stuff. Technical players who are really quite clever, sensible. They aren't the best, like I said, with defending, especially with physical defending. Centre backs, I'd say they don't look weak, but they don't look big and strong like you'd see in the Premier League. So because of that, I think if West Ham, I know some of their best players, but you've got those big, strong strikers, quick and put crosses in the box. That's how you're going to get at RZ. Not that you see it too much in the Eredivisie because there isn't a lot of that, to be honest, that kind of play. So it's kind of that. I think that's what will happen when you look at what they're used to in their own league. With some of the best players in their side, Jesper Karlsson, he's a left winger, but isn't expected to be fit. He isn't expected to start the first leg, but perhaps is the second leg. We'll see what happens there. Milos Kerkez is a teenage left-back, Hungarian international already, but he is suspended for the first leg, back for the second leg. So for me, it all has a bit of a script written about it, that RZ go into that second leg having had their best players back fit and in the starting 11. But yes, their left side, which is typically very strong, both players are likely to miss the game. So it's probably going to come down the right side. Yukinari Sugawara is a Japanese international. He's one of the better players. A right back, gets forward quite a lot, but he's also now becoming quite a clever defender. Then on the other side, you've got Jens Odgaard, right winger, who has some good games, some less good games. Striker is Vangelis Pavlidis, Greek striker, international. Doesn't score often enough to be that kind of European striker, but again, on his day, it's very good. RZ are full of players that I've got are young, got potential, could make a millions, but also that little bit of, there are some players who are a little bit inconsistent, and you can see why they haven't already made that move to the Premier League, or maybe haven't made that move to Ajax and then with RZ instead. So they have some players that are of that tier, that are of that ability, but some that are less so. So it depends what RZ will play in that night. It depends how they rise this occasion. A couple of other names I'll drop in there. Matthew Ryan is a goalkeeper. He did play for Brighton before. Decent player. Jordi Classy, ex-Southampton, the captain. He sits in midfield. He's neat and tidy. The whole team love to pass. They zip it around quite a lot. If they're 2 or 3-0 down, the mentality of the side is strong. They will keep playing. They'll keep trying to attack. That is just their style. And if I may, I'll go into how they've been getting on recently. They drew 0-0 with Ajax at the weekend. And they created a lot of chances in that game. It wasn't a boring 0-0. It was very entertaining. It was very surprising there weren't goals. And I think RZ had the better chances, just despite playing in Amsterdam. They didn't win. They should have won. They would have gone into third place had they done so and overtaken Ajax, who we all know from the European runs are a good team, but maybe without now some of their better players that they had. However, they're a side that are very good when it comes to playing the teams that are at the top of the league. I put a stat the other day on Twitter. The 4 best teams in the Eredivisie: Feyenoord, Ajax, PSV, and RZ. If you just took those 4 teams over the past 4 seasons and put them into a little league of their own against each other, RZ are the best. 41 points in 4 seasons. That's 5 more than Ajax. It's 15 more than Feyenoord, and about 25 more than PSV, was something ridiculous. So when it comes to playing the bigger teams, they are very good and rise to it. And they have those players that do that. They play really well on the counter-attack. They love making the most of that space because, like I said, technical, very quick on the ball. So it suits them. This game in London suits them if they can handle the physical nature of West Ham.
Okay, that's interesting. So when you were talking about how they've got a good record against sort of the bigger teams, if you like, I was going to say, is that because those teams attack them more and therefore they're able to play counter-attacking football, whereas other sides may set up with a low block against them and ask questions.
Yeah,
and
exactly. They struggle with a low block. They really find those mid-table teams quite tricky, especially at home. So when they're away from home, they have a bit more freedom and they can go in 3 or 4-1. At home, sometimes, not all the time, they can find it tricky. It's a 1-0 win or it's a 0-0, 1-1. I don't think West Ham are going to pose that kind of challenge.
Yeah, so their weaknesses, the physicality. Is there any other glaring weaknesses there? One thing that West Ham are quite strong at sometimes, or we have been recently, is set pieces. And I suppose this goes hand in hand with the physicality factor there. Do you think that's where something West Ham could exploit?
Yeah, Pantelis Hatzidiakos, just want to say, he's Greek international, and Sam Burkema, they're the two centre-backs that were likely to play. And I don't think they're known for their physical presence, winning lots of headers. But they can, in the league they do. Hatzidiakos is a good defender. Burkema's coming back into form, having had an injury. I think that's one big glaring weakness for me, looking at it. Also, if their fullbacks are caught really too far high up, it might be an opportunity there. I think the biggest problem for RZ is that the players will either not quite have fitness after having some time out injured, the likes of Carlson, Odegaard to a certain extent, Pavlidis as well a little bit. Danny DeVit is not even any contention at all, and he's been their attacking midfielder for a long time. The left-back, McKirkes, being out due to suspension. The centre-backs have been a problem all season for RZ. They've seemed to never have the same back two playing for a particular long time together. That kind of thing is going to be the weakness, that it's not them at their prime 100%. And I think that's a good chance for West Ham therefore in London, especially without Carlson and Kirkes, to make the most of that. And back in Alkmaar, it's a difficult game. If Alkmaar are trailing by a goal or two, they'll go out and play and attack and probably get some of the deficit down. They did it already in the competition to Anderlecht. When 2-0 down for the first leg, they then won the second leg 2-0, one of the penalties. Anderlecht, I know, aren't great. And I know West Ham found that as well. But when RZ played against them in Belgium, the 2-0 defeat, they played the ball around a lot, but had no end product that evening. And I think that's what RZ can be guilty of, is just playing the absolute stinker. But I think mentally they'll be really up for this. Just don't see that happening, which has been a weakness this season. So yeah, to sort of summarise that, I think physical side of it and players not quite being at their prime.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, because I was going to ask what went wrong in Belgium, because obviously it's like a neutral. You see Alkmaar doing really well in the league, beating Lazio, and then going into the quarterfinal, you thought, that's who. There was almost an assumption that this is who we were going to be facing in the semi-final when we saw that they were going to be playing Anderlecht. So then when they were 2-0 down after the first leg, there was a bit of a surprise factor, even though you didn't know much about them. We obviously played Anderlecht, so we knew more about them, and we knew how poor they were. So it was quite surprising to see that result. So I'm glad you've answered that, actually. Thursday night, then.
Add to that as well. Yes. When they play away, there have been these times like that Anderlecht game. I mean, at the beginning of the season, to qualify, they lost 1-0 Dundee United. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. I think Anderlecht was up there with the worst performance of the season, but that one also was there. But in the home leg, they beat Dundee United 7-0. So when they're firing and they're at it, they're a force to be reckoned with. Sorry, do carry on.
Yeah, you're sort of giving me encouragement and nerves at the same time here. I'm getting very contradictory things. That some things you're saying, I'm thinking, oh, excellent, we can take advantage of that. But there's other things you're saying, I'm thinking, whoa, I don't like the pace on the camera. I don't like the sound of that. Thursday night, then, how do you see it going at the London Stadium?
I really think RZ are going to score. There's part of me that thinks that's going to happen, and then what happens after that? It's up to West Ham. So I think they'll get a couple of goals, West Ham, unfortunately. That's why I've kind of gone with 2-1. My head's set on 2-1 West Ham, but could be a 3-1 West Ham if they really pull away with it. And then backing out Alkmaar, I think a different story. I think depending on what they need, we'll see RZ potentially coming out of the blocks. They'll be at it when they're in a home match. But I do think they're going to give it their all in the away match. I think they're missing players. West Ham giving them a taste of what English football's like. That's going to be a test, real big test. They could swim, though. RZ could swim and actually get a win here. But we won't see them step back and defend and try and get the goals out. It's not what they are. I'd be very surprised if Pascal Janssen, the manager, plays that way. I mean, West Ham fans, I keep hearing, seem to be quite confident about this. But RZ won't be a pushover. But I think if West Ham, that European night, and they bring their A game, I think they'll win it.
This is going to sound really weird, but when we played Sevilla last season in the Europa League, we had to play away for the first leg, and the second leg was at home, similar to the situation at Alkmaar are in going into this. And weirdly, I think there was a lot of feeling among the West Ham fans that if we lost by a goal, that would be a good result because we fancied it back at our place, and turned out to be correct. We took it to extra time and beat them in extra time, so those opinions were then justified. So it's a really weird question, but do you think a 1-goal loss would be an acceptable result for Alkmaar, given that they're missing 2 of their best players by what you suggest, and that at home it's going to be a completely different ball game for us?
Yeah, to be sure. Yeah, I think so. That's what I've got in my head, that if it's only 1 goal, I was going to take it back to Alkmaar and different game, different match to this. Going to London, the atmosphere of it, I think it doesn't quite fit in your hands, does it? And I was at an alien to the situation. Whereas in Alkmaar, and to be fair, in a way, in the Eredivisie, they've posed a challenge to the top sides in the Dutch league. But back in Alkmaar, they've beaten Ajax there already. I can see this different animal coming out in Alkmaar. But they'll keep the ball well in London. They will try to get players in behind the defence. They've got real pace there. Breda Loda is the replacement left winger, and he's quick as well, as is Carlson. So that is how they'll get the chances in, I think. And watch out for Tijani Reinders, midfielder. I think he's on the cusp of the Dutch national team now, and I don't know how he's not good in it yet, with a couple of the players that are so poor in it. They just haven't left it. And he's someone who will support the striker, Pavlidis. He's got a good shot on him, creates lots. Just those real good players that you don't ignore them. They're not a sitting boring defensive midfielder, but they're those people that are just doing a bit of everything, and they're really quite good at everything. He's really growing this season, a bit of a late bloomer.
Last question.
Yeah, I think it's a good game.
Yeah, last question for you. You think West Ham will win narrowly on Thursday, but who do you think is going to reach the final?
I mean, I can't come amiss, can I?
Because while you're conceding the loss on Thursday, I'm getting this expectation that we're going to get beat in the second leg. So therefore, I want to know who you think is going to reach the final out of this semi-final.
I am going to say West Ham because it's what my mind's telling me is what it's thinking. But that's because I want that surprise when AZ do it. I don't think AZ are going to go to London and win, but they could. That would surprise me further. I think West Ham win that first leg. It depends how many goals you get. I think that 2-goal cushion could be the difference. So that's why I keep playing it to the end of the game. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Massively appreciate it. If you guys at home have enjoyed this Dummy's Guide to AZ Alkmaar, please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new to Hammer's Chat. And on your screen will be 3 seconds will be his chat with Cal on his YouTube channel. So go check that out as well. And myself, I'll catch you in a bit.